Scientific literacy in India. Let's go. Translating taxonomy into Sanskrit. So here's the map of the world's literacy. As you can see, India is very low compared to its neighbors, China, and even America. So here's the map of India and its literacy. Most of it's low except for Kerala and northeast India, the southern part. Ironic. Evidently, they're Christian, but let's just say correlation does not imply causation. Anyway, we have a problem. So we have a problem, which is that science words are understandable to Europeans speaking many languages because they're unified by Latin and Greek, which became lingua franca. However, in our country, that is far from the case, though we still use English words due to colonization. A computer is that which thinks. Notice how you can judge the meaning of a word. A transmitter is something that transmits or carries. Electrons have to do something with electricity, and so on. Now, inferring the meaning of an English science word in India is very difficult because only 14% of Indians know English by heart, which is making India the second largest English-speaking country by population, but that's because India is the second most populated country, overtaking China soon. Now, here's the benefit of coining Sanskrit science words. When we translate scientific terms into Sanskrit, here are the benefits. We expand science to a larger demographic of India in the country of Greater India, like Nepal to Indonesia, etc. Now, Sanskrit words can be put into local languages better than English words, and Sanskrit words can be understood by Indian speakers to some degree better than Latin and Greek or English-based words. However, one translated some scientific words into Sanskrit. It is the person who helped create or created the Sanskrit dictionary, link posted below. For example, microscope is Sukshmadarshini, and carbon is Angara, and bicarbonate is Dvayangariya, etc. But what I want to do is go above and beyond and finish the task. Now, taxonomy is something I started on my own. I didn't get direct taxonomic terms from Sanskrit. I only got words to help me out. So what is taxonomy? Well, we shall start simple. Taxonomy is the science of classifying living things into groups. It's based on the evolutionary relationship, and you're familiar with it if you heard terms like scientific name, genus, or Homo sapien. Now let's talk about the hierarchy. We have, those who take a science class, proper science class, know these divisions. We have kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. Now let's start coining some Sanskrit words. Let's start with kingdom. As in many Indian languages, the word for kingdom in Sanskrit, from which these languages are derived, is Rajya. So we're off to a great start. Now we go to phylum, which is a bit difficult to translate. So phylum is from Greek phylon, meaning race or stock. Now, I was new to Sanskrit, so the word I used was bhaga, but let's use relevant words now. Kula or jati, much of these words have to do with family or race, so we're off to a great start. Now let's review. Now I want to use a translation that encompasses a larger group, yet has the concept of a relation to it. Here are the following Sanskrit words. We have Gana, Sangha, and then we have Jata and Varga. Sangha suggests assembly, Jata is more for genus, and Varga I'm using for something else. So the correct word should be Gana, meaning group. Next, we go to class. Now, the translation for class is very straightforward. It is Varga. This word means class as well as group, but this word is usually directly translated as class, at least by me. This word is used in my Sanskrit Bharati WhatsApp group as just class. Varga is class, like science class, math class, or Sanskrit class. Now, let's move on to order. Now, I was new to Sanskrit, so I translated order in the context of sequence, so I used anukrama and krama, but I'm going to refine this and start new. I know, ironic. The word I chose was varganga, which is a compound of varga, class, and anga, part. So varganga means a part of a class, as order is a part of a class. Family. Now we have several words for family. We have kula, jati, vamsa, kutumba. Now kula and vamsa have to do with lineage. Now jati is politically controversial with the caste issues in India, so I choose kutumba. Now let's go to genus. Jata and jana. Now jana refers to people as in public people, so I use jata. Okay, I know it sounds like jati, and actually jati is from jata, but they're different enough. And jata is etymologically related to genus as well as jana, but jata is more accurate. So yes, even in the online dictionary, jata is species, but I want to use it as genus, just to preserve the etymology. Now, about species. So what exactly is a species? They're kind of difficult to define. Now, traditionally, species are animals that can mate and produce a fertile offspring. So I use these words, apaurva, meaning, which is actually a derivation of apurva, meaning unique, prabheda, which means variety or subdivision, and can be applied to species. Now, jata, well, I already used for genus, you know what that means. Now, jata, since I used for genus, we have apurva and prabheda. Apurva means unprecedented, so I can't use it or its derivative. So for species, I decided to use prabheda. Now let's recap. We have kingdom, raja, phylum, gana, class, varga, order, varganga, family, kutumba, genus, jata, and species, prabheda. When I was coining these terms, it was suffixation that kind of had a problem for me. So, in Western Sans words, there are names of orders or families that have day suffix, like hominidae, or morph, like, actually, I'm thinking of morph suffixes, but meaning form. And actually, birds have forms like strigoforms, which are owls. So, we need to have a Sanskrit suffix that corresponds to day. So, the suffix maya means consisting of, and that's what I have used. To note, here's how maya in Sanskrit is used. Daru means wood, and then maya means consisting of, so daru plus maya is daru maya. Thus, daru maya means consisting of wood and means wooden. Or it kind of could be used as the day suffix. I shall repurpose it. And for forms, I shall use the Sanskrit word rupa, or I might end up using akara at some point. Let's get to the fun part. So, we'll start with the eukaryotic kingdoms. Now let's keep it simple with eukaryotes. That's why I chose them. So for the Chatur Rajaha, the four kingdoms, we have protists, which is Adima Jiva. Adima and Jiva means primitive and life respectively, so protists are primitive life. As well, they're primitive versions of their multicellular counterparts. Though algae can be multicellular, like kelp. Scientists believe that protists are the ancestor of plants, fungi, and animals. Now, plants is vanaspati. I initially chose sasya, that means crop, but I want to be more broad. Now, for fungi, I chose kavaka. Initially vasaroha, but that's mushroom. Now, animals is jantuhu or mriga. Now, mriga can also be used for deer. This is similar to how in English, deer originally meant any animal before it just became exclusively used for the antlered animal. Let's start naming some phylums in animals to start off. So here's some phylums, but not all, just some. So we have Annelida, which is Vartula Pradivad Krami. Vartula is ring, Pradi is segment, so Vartula Pradivad means having ring segments, and Krami means worms, as these worms have ring segments. Now, the next phylum is Cnidaria. Now, jellyfish and sea anemones are examples of cnidarians. Now, cnidarians I chose to translate as Karkasha Koshin. Karkasha means nettle. Now, Koshin is from Kosha, which means box, but has been repurposed to mean cells, not by me, but by, well, someone. So, Karkasha Koshin means having nettle cells, which is exactly kind of like a calque of the word cnidarians. Now, echinoderms is Ruksha Tvach. Now, Ruksha means rough and Tvach is skin, as echinoderms have tough skin. Now let's talk about chordata. Now there are invertebrates that are chordates, which is like tunicates and lancelets. Now, when I meant chordata, I meant vertebrata, meaning having a backbone. So, kasheru is backbone in Sanskrit, and thus I chose kasheruka, which is a vriddhi derivation of kasheruka, but a better Sanskrit translation is kaseruvat, meaning having a backbone. So, kasheruvat is vertebrates. Classes in animals. Jantoshu kasheruvanteshu vargaha. Well, this means classes in vertebrate animals. We have mammals, reptiles, fish, and amphibians and birds, collectively known as Mr. Fab, as I learned it in kindergarten. Let's name the animal classes. So, mammals. I initially named mammals as Mataja, meaning mother-born, but there's a problem. All animals are mother-born, and some reptiles are viviparous, meaning some reptiles give live birth, and some fish, like sharks, do that. So, a Telugu translation of Wikipedia translates mammals as Kshirada. I think also Google Translate does that. Now, this means milk-giving, and mammals are exclusively lactators, though pigeons have been known to give a milk-like substance through their throat. Thank you, Krat Brothers. Now, reptiles was also a similar endeavor. Now, reptiles was a similar endeavor as mentioned. Now, I translated as Sarpana, meaning creep, as reptiles are that which creep, but the Telugu Wikipedia has reptiles as Sarisripa as well as Google Translate, so I'm choosing Sarisripa. You can tell that when I was coining these terms back in 7th grade, I was very new to Sanskrit learning. Now, let's continue. Let's talk about fish and amphibians. Now, fish is Matsya or Meena. The latter is a borrowing from a Dravidian language. Now, that word will likely be popular amongst the Dravidians. Speaking people, this is a linguistic division, not a racial one. Now, amphibians, I initially chose to be faithful for the words, meaning as double life, and chose it as Dvija, meaning twice born, but now I'm more mature, and to not be politically sensitive, I'll choose a different word. Using Telugu Translator on Google Translate, I got this word, Ubayachara. Now, Ubayachara means walking on both. Ubayachara, meaning walking on both, refers to how the animals go on water and land, so this could also imply not only to frogs, but also to ducks and herons. However, in English, we have a similar thing. Amphibious and amphibian both are of the same etymology, but are used to refer to similar but different enough things. Let's continue. We have birds or avians. No, Latin avis is related to Sanskrit word v, also meaning bird. However, v is a bit more archaic. Let's use the common word pakshi, as which is found in many Indian languages. So birds or aves will be pakshi. So let's recap. Mammals is Kshirada, reptiles is Sarisrupa, fish is Matsya or Meena, amphibians are Ubayacharas, and birds are Pakshis. Kshiradeshu Vargangaha, orders in mammals. So we have our Carnivora, Artiodactyla, and then we have Perissodactyla, Rodenta, Elephantida, well, it's Proboscis. Elephantida is the family, Cingulata, and Primata, which is us, and monkeys, etc. Now, Carnivora, or carnivores, literally meaning meat eaters, like lions or wolves. Since they mean meat eaters, I have chose this word, mamsati. Mamsa is meat, obviously. Ati means eating. Ati actually is related to eat. So mamsati, but then we also have mamsaharin, which means having meat as food. And prasaha. Prasaha is actually found in the Charaka Samhita, so I wanted to use that to tie it to tradition. But for everyday use, which is more understandable amongst Indian speakers likely, I suggest using mamsaharin and then use prasaha to be a bit more poetical. Now let's talk about artiodactyls, even-toed ungulates and whales, dolphins, and porpoises. Yes, you heard me right. So, Artiodactyla literally means even-toed. So, even in Sanskrit is yugma, and toed is angulin. So, thus, yugmangulin is Artiodactyla. We'll talk about cetaceans later in the video. So now let's talk about Perissodactyla, horses and rhinoceroses etc. So Perissodactyla means odd toed. Thus, in Sanskrit, we have ayugma, meaning odd, and angulin, meaning toed or fingered. So ayugmangulin is Perissodactyla. Let's talk about rodents from order Rodenta. This is mice like Jerry or Mickey, and capybaras, etc. From the Latin root rod, meaning to gnaw, and is related to Sanskrit root rad, meaning gnaw, and hence the Sanskrit verb radati, to gnaw. I can derive from rad radaka, however, I have a better word. The Sanskrit dictionary gives samkadaka as chewer. Now, I'd love to use cognates, and it is actually better to use an existing word than a derived word. Now, let's talk about Proboscis, which has the only surviving member that is elephants. And proboscis means trunk, hence the name of the order. Now, let's just make it simple and use a word meaning elephant directly. Now, initially, I chose Airavata, the name of Indra's elephant, but let's use that aside for poetical usage. So, here are some words in Sanskrit for elephant. We have Iba, Hastin, Karin, Gaja. Now, the first three words are from words referring to grasping or hands as referring to the trunk, but early elephant ancestors did not have trunks, but taxonomy would consider them elephants. So let's just choose Gaja, which means to trumpet. Now, if you're wondering about Iba, according to Srikant Talagari, a scholar, is derived from the Sanskrit root lab or rab, meaning to grasp. Now, Gaja is actually from Gaj, meaning to trumpet or roar, and I can assume proto-elephants trumpeted or roared. So Proboscis is Gaja. Moving on to Cingulata, which is including armadillos. They were huge members that are gone extinct. So the Cingulata means girdled one, but if you look at living Cingulata animals, we can see they have armored. So let's use a Sanskrit word meaning armored. So we have varmika, varmin, and kavachin. Now, the last two have the in suffix, which is a bit difficult for me to decline in Sanskrit, so we will use varmika for the order name. Now let's move on to the last of our list, but there are more that I haven't included. So the last of our list is primates. That's the order we are in, as well as lemurs, monkeys, and apes. Actually, humans are part of great apes. Now, primate is from Latin primus, meaning prime, as we are supposed to be the highest order according to early modern taxonomists. Let's use a humble term. I initially chose Purva Purusha, meaning old human, to refer to the human-like appearances of primates, but we are primates and we're new humans, so let's use a humble term. So Sanskrit words for monkeys are translated as ape sometimes because apes and monkeys were used interchangeably. So if for monkeys, we have Vanara, Kapin, Markata, Sakamraga, and Plavaga. Sakamraga and Plavaga literally mean branch animal and jump goers, making these terms ambiguous. Now let's talk about Vanara. Now you could argue that Vanara is ambiguous as it could be meaning forest man from Vana and Nara, though this etymology is a bit flimsy. But most Indian languages derived from Sanskrit use a derivative of Vanara to mean monkey. For example, Hindi, it is Bandar, and Bandar means monkey. Like Bandar Log of the Jungle Book is a group of monkeys without law. Another ambiguous word is kapi, and is likely related to Hebrew kaf, Greek kebos, and Latin kebus, which is pronounced as cebus. Since kapi can be both ape or monkey and is a bit more ambiguous, I shall further increase its ambiguity by using a derivative, which is kapeya, and thus primates is kapeya. I got the word kapeya from the Sanskrit dictionary. Kapeya means monkey-like, well, thus that can be used for monkeys or anything like monkeys, including our great apes. Let's recap. Carnivora is mamsaharin, or to be poetical, prasaha. Artiodactyla is yugmangulin. Perissodactyla is ayugmangulin. Rodenta is samkadaka. Elephantidae, well, actually, Proboscis is gaja. Cingulata is varmika. And primates are kapeya. So let's talk about families in the mammalian order, but I have to make it quick for the sake of the video length. So we have Carnivora, we have Felidae, Canidae, Ursidae, and Pinnipidae, Artiodactyla, Bovidae, Cervidae, not Corvidae, Suidae, Hippopotomidae, and Cetacea, though Cetacea is in infraorder. Perissodactyla, we have Equidae, Rhinoceridae, and for Rodenta, Muridae, and Scuridae. Proboscis is Elephantidae, Cingulata is our armadillos, and primates, we have Lemuridae, Sauropithecidae, and Hominidae. These are just a few. So let's talk about Carnivora. So in Carnivora, we have Canidae, which is Swan Maya. Swan is cognate to English hound and canis. Felidae, Bidala Maya. Bidala means cat in Sanskrit. Ursidae is Riksha Maya or Baluka Maya. Now, Riksha is cognate to Latin Ursus, but the latter Baluka has descendants in modern Indian languages like Hindi, Balu, like Balu the bear in Jungle Book. Thus, both are acceptable until further notice. Now, Pinnipidae, which means fin-footed, but here is the thing, seals don't live in the Indian Ocean, and there's no word for fin, like fish fin or whale fin in Sanskrit. Now, we have to do a learned borrowing. So, Greek word for seal is poke, from which we get Spanish la foca. So, we have the Arabic version of that word, which is fukima, which we shall use. Thus, seal or Pinnipidae is Fukima Maya. Now let's talk about Artiodactyls. Let's start with Bovidae. Initially I chose Go Maya, since Go is related to Latin bos, but Go Maya means cow dung. They think I refuse to step in the streets of India. Thus Denu Maya. For the subtribes, we have Bovinae, Gavatmaka, Caprinae, Chagatmaka or Meshatmaka. Chaga is goat and Mesha is sheep. And Antilopinae is Kurangatmaka, Cervidae is Harinamaya, and Cervinae is Harinatmaka. Note that the morpheme Atmaka corresponds to the Inae suffix of subfamilies. Hippopotamuses don't live in India, so Hippopotamidae is difficult to translate. And the Wikipedia and Google Translate use Jalahasti. Now, Jalahasti is a word found in ancient Indian literature, but no one knows what animal that is, so it's agreed to be hippos. Now, Suidae is Varahamaya or Sukaramaya. Now, Varaha is boar and Sukara is pig. Both can be interchangeable. Let's talk about cetaceans. Cetacea is an infraorder within Artiodactyla. Here's a fun fact. Cetaceans have their closest relative being the hippopotamuses. Cetacean is from Latin cetus, meaning whale, thus timi in Sanskrit. Now, some Indian languages use timingala, which means whale swallower, but let's just use timi, thus timi maya is the infraorder. That is cetaceans. Now, Mysticeti is baleen whales. Odontoceti is tooth whale. I translated it as Shodanasya and Dantasya / Dantatimi respectively. The first means filter mouth, as baleen whales have baleen plates that use filter, and the last two both mean tooth mouth or tooth whales respectively, referring to the fact that these whales have teeth. Now, within that we have Delphinidae, which is Shisumara Maya. Shisumara is dolphin, and the constellation Draco is viewed as a dolphin. Thus, Shisumara Maya is Delphinidae. Here's a fun fact, orcas are dolphins. Coenidae, or porpoises, which are different from dolphins. I choose Chulukin Maya, as Chulukin or Ulukin means porpoise in Sanskrit and is likely a borrowing from a Dravidian language. In Telugu, we have Ulacha, which means porpoise. So, Perissodactyla, we have Equidae, which is Asva Maya. Asva is related to Latin equus. Rhinoceridae, Khadgamrigamaya. Rhinoceros is Khadgamriga, which means sword animal, referring to the horn on the head, meaning a sickle or sword. Rodenta, we have Muridae, which is Mushmaya. Mush is related to Latin moor. Romashimaya is Scuridae. Romashi means squirrels. Scuridae are squirrels. In Proboscis, we have Elephantidae, which I chose as Hastin Maya to make it quick and simple. Hastin means elephant. Descendant in Hindi is Hathi. Now, primates. Lemuridae is Gidro Maya. Now, Gidro is not a Sanskrit word. I took a word from Malagasy to honor them. Malagasy word for lemur is Gidro. Cercopithecidae, Markatamaya or Puchin Markatamaya. The former is just from Markata, meaning monkey, and the latter is Markata Puchin, which means monkey possessing a tail, which makes that word a calque to Cercopithecidae, as Cercopithecidae means tailed monkey. Now, Hominidae is a bit difficult. So we have Vanaramaya or Vrishakapimaya. I know I talked about Vanara, but that Nara part just makes me think of how apes and humans are so alike. Then I chose Vrishakapi, which is manly ape, and due to its ambiguity, we can apply it to great apes. So both are interchangeable. Marsupials, Udarasyutin, from Udara meaning belly and Syuta, pouch, and in is the possessing suffix. So Udarasyutin means possessing a belly pouch, as females of this group have pouch bellies. Diprodonta, Dvipuradantin or Dvipuratadantin, both meaning having two front teeth. So kangaroo is Ganguru or Gunguru, which is a learned borrowing from the Aboriginal language for kangaroo, Gunguru. Wallaby is Alpa Gunguru or Alpa Ganguru, which means small kangaroo. Koala could be Gula, which is the Aboriginal word, or Kovala, which is the English word, which is borrowed from that Aboriginal word. Tasmanian devil can be Lutruita Shvapada. Lutruita is the reconstructed Tasmanian language Palawi Kani word for their island. I chose that word to honor them. Wombat is Wambada, Wambaga, or Wambaja, from the Aboriginal word for wombat, from which English gets its word for wombat. Specific Aboriginal language that I borrowed the word from is the Darung language. The word for wombat in that Darung language is Wambad, Wambug, and Wambaj, respective to the way I said the Sanskrit words. Okay, let's talk about reptiles. Vargangaha Sarishpeshu. So, we have Squamata, which includes snakes and lizards. Actually, snakes are descendants from lizards. We have Crocodilia and Testudines, which are turtles and tortoises. Actually, tortoises are technically turtles. Let's talk about Squamatans now. So, Squamatans, as mentioned, are lizards and snakes. Let's use a word for lizard, as snakes are descended from lizards. Lizard is Godika, Saratu, Sarata, Bimba, Shayana, Vedara, and Palli. Bimba and Shayana are vague, and Palli is barely used, so we have Godika, Saratu, Sarata, and Vedara. I'll keep true to my initial decision and choose Sarata. For the suborder Lacertilla, or normal lizards, I shall choose Saratu. And for suborder Serpentes, I'll choose Sarpa, as Sarpa is cognate to serpent. Let's talk about crocodilians. So there are several words for crocodile. Makara, Nakra, Graha, Kumbira. Now, Makra is a legendary animal that could also refer to a dolphin, and Graha includes any animal that can grasp, including a shark. And then we have Nakra and Kumbira. I reserved Kumbira for something else, so the order Crocodilia shall thus be Nakra. Now, Testudines are tortoises and turtles. So for turtle, we have the following word. And yes, tortoises are turtles. Turtle in Sanskrit is Kurma, Kashyapa, and Kachapaha. So, Kurma is more poetical as it refers to the second incarnation of Vishnu usually. And actually, Kachapa is descended from Sanskrit Kashyapa, and Kachapa has descendants in Indian languages. Thus, Kachapaha shall be used for Testudines. Now let's summarize. So, in reptiles, we have Squamata, which is Sarata, lizards are Saratu, and snakes are Sarpa. And then, for crocodilians, it is Nakra. And then we have Testudines, which is Kachapaha, and Kurma, if we want to be poetical. So, reptilian order families, let's make it quick. Squamata, lizards, Gecko-nidae, Vanidae, Iguanidae, serpents, Elapidae, Viperidae, Colubridae, Crocodilia, Crocodilidae, Alligoridae, Gavialidae, Testudines, Cryptodira, Plerodira, many more, so little time. Okay, so for Squamata, we have lizards, subsection lizards, Gecko-nidae, Grahagodicamaya, Crocodilia is a house lizard and thus can refer to geckos that are found on the walls on Indian homes. Varanidae, monitor lizards. Gaurapada maya. Gaurapada is used for the Asian water monitor, and that means Mrs. Kipling can be called a Gaurapada. Actually, this animal is also the animal that chased the Gon brothers / gods into a cave. And then we have Iguanidae. Iguanidae is Ivana from the Taino word Ivana, from which English gets the word iguana via Spanish. Moving on, we'll talk about serpents. So, we have Elapidae, which is Surasa Maya. Surasa is a snake monstrous that dwelt in the sea and obstructed Hanuman for a brief moment from crossing to Lanka. Interestingly, Elapid is from a Greek word elops, meaning a sea fish, perhaps a sea serpent. Nagas are generally depicted as cobras, which are elapid snakes, by the way. Viperidae is Mandali Maya. Mandali is mentioned in the Susrita Samhita, Kalpastana, chapter 5, and the website Wisdom Library clarifies this word as viperine snakes. Colobridae is Dundaba Maya, and Dundaba is a snake that is not venomous and is mentioned in Mahabharata. Next, we'll talk about crocodiles. So Crocodilia, Crocodilidae is Nakramaya. Alligaridae is Urumuka Kumbira Maya, literally mean broad-faced crocodilian. Honestly, I want to just use Kumbira for alligator entirely. Let's talk about gharials or Gavialidae. I chose Gantika Maya. Gantika in Sanskrit is gharial, which has a descendant in Hindi, which is Gavial, from where we get the English word gharial and the Latin gavial of Gavialidae. For the sake of the length of the video, I chose two families to focus on. Cryptodira or Nivartingriva, or I should choose Nivartingriva Maya. Nivartingriva means retreating neck, as these turtles retract their neck straight back into their heads by pulling their head straight back. Next type of turtles that I have chosen to cover is Plerodira. Plerodira I chose as Parshvagriva. It should be Parshvagriva Maya, which means side neck, as these turtles retract their head into their shells and fold their neck to the side. About fish, we learned it as a separate class in grade school. Evolutionary speaking, there is no class fish. Even if there was, humans would fit into it, because anything that's descendant from a fish would be considered a fish. That includes most land, actually all land mammals, and all land animals are technically fish. But then again, birds are descendants of reptiles and they have their own class. But then again, birds are a clade, a single clade. Thus, I'm going to skip over fish and revisit it. Oh, by the way, isn't it interesting that birds are living dinosaurs? Okay, amphibians. Let's make it quick because birds are a long one. So Anura is frogs and thus Manduka, which is frog. And no, it's not Manduka Maya. That's if it is a family. So Manduka is frog. Urodella is salamanders. There's no word in Sanskrit for salamanders, but there is one in Hindi, Samandar, derived from Persian Samandar. Persian Samandar is likely where we get English salamander. Anyway, Samandar into Sanskrit will be Samandara, thus Urodella is Samandar Maya. Now, Gymnophenes. Gymnophenes are Sicilians, which are mistaken for snakes. In fact, Ophenes is from Ophis, Greek word for snake. I proposed the Sanskrit name Ubayacharahi, which means amphibian snake, referring to how these animals are actually amphibians but look like snakes. Now birds, yes, Pakshi. There are many orders in birds, but here are a few. Pseriforms, falconiforms, picaforms, strigiforms, gruiforms, galliforms, and seriforms, icopteriforms. Okay, I know I named a few bird orders. I will eventually share the others in another video. Let's begin. Passeriniforms are perching small songbirds like sparrows or robins. I looked briefly through the Sushruta Samhita and the Mruga Pakshi Sastra by Hamsadeva, but I found no words that encompasses these passerine birds. So let's coin a word. Branch is Saka and bird is Pakshi, thus little branch bird is Saka Pakshika. Also, clade shall be known as Saka, which means branch. Falconiforms. Falcons. Here's the thing, falcons and hawks were referred to by the same words as they kind of look alike. This is due to convergent evolution, where two animals of different groups end up with similar features as they experience similar selective pressures. Two words come into mind, Siena and Vegan. Vegan is from Sanskrit Vega, which means fast, and since falcons are faster than hawks, in fact, peregrine falcons are the fastest bird, and actually the fastest animal, falconiforms is Vegan Pakshi. Picaforms, or woodpeckers. Sanskrit word for woodpecker is Satachada. Thus, we shall call the order Satachada Pakshi to be consistent with the pattern. Strigiforms are owls, thus Uluka, and thus Uluka Pakshi. Uluka could be a cognate to owl, or another option is that Uluka is similar to owl due to onomatopoeia. Now, gruiforms are cranes. Cranes in Sanskrit are Baka, thus Baka Pakshi will be the order. Now, galliforms are chickens, peacocks, and etc. I initially used the word kukkuta, meaning chicken, but I found a more inclusive term in the Sushruta Samhita Uttara Tantra, and that is Vishkira, which referred to any gullishness bird according to that online dictionary. Thus, the order will be called Vishkira Pakshi. Seriforms are ducks, gooses, and swans, and serim means duck, so in Sanskrit duck is kadamba, thus kadamba pakshi. Kipcheriforms are our hawks, eagles, and old world vultures. Now I could use Garuda Pakshi, as Garuda is the eagle god in Hindu religion. I could also use Shiena Pakshi, as Shiena is not only hawk but also eagle. Thus both are acceptable, but Garuda Pakshi will be more poetical. Now let's recap for birds. So, Passeriforms is Saka Pakshika, Falconiforms is Vegan Pakshi, Picaforms is Satacha Pakshi, Strigiforms is Uluka Pakshi, Gruiforms is Baka Pakshi, Galliforms is Vishkira Pakshi, and Seriforms is Kadamba Pakshi, Decaptriforms is Shiena Pakshi, or for poetical reasons Garuda Pakshi. Now, let's conclude. I know I haven't used rupa or akara to refer to the form suffix, but the suffix pakshi just makes more sense. By the way, clade is saka, which means branch. Now, we have done animals. At some point we'll do plants, but for now, thanks for watching. Vidya Viveka Tattva, or Vidya Viveka Satya. And I'll see you some other time.